Welcome to the Hog of Liberty podcast. This is episode number 311 of East Central's favorite podcast. I'm Jeremiah Morrill. Today I'm joined by executive video producer, audio engineer, I don't know what else other titles we want. He's our head diesel mechanic, Zach Burcham.
Terrible at all of the above named positions.
You get paid commensurate to your value to the show. And our guest slash the dude that's on the website but never shows up unless the kids will die because it's too hot outside and he can't coach. Is it soccer or baseball or what?
I don't coach either. I barely watch. I have no idea what offsides is.
We're going to give you way more. He's the Ted Lasso of Newcastle Athletics. City Councilman Aaron Dicken, everybody.
How y'all doing? Is that good, Ted Lasso?
Sure. Just barbecue sauce, man. This show today, what do we got planned? We're going to talk to Aaron about how he won his election already. I have the world's worst printer, and my eyes are over 40 years old, so trying to actually read the notes that I prepared
It's on cardstock, so you obviously are out of paper.
Are a nightmare. It's just because you're here. I printed it on the most premium paper I could possibly print it on. We're going to talk about what the city council does. There were some allegations thrown around that we should do better at being city council people, so we're going to ask Aaron about that. The city budget's been called into question. I hear he has something to do with that thing. I would like to have somebody fix Riley Road and the speed limit problem that I perceive, so maybe we'll talk about it. 2 weeks ago, we did a show, talked about the Hamilton County Library and John Green's book. There's news on that front. And turns out in Indiana, you're not allowed to just jump in any Power Wheels Jeep you want to. That can be a crime. We're going to cover all that and more. This show is about our lives in rural Indiana. We're here to push your boundaries and make you think as individuals. Sometimes it'll provoke you, other times it'll make you laugh, but hopefully you'll always learn something new. Zach, what did we learn in the Patreon edition today?
Oh, it was a long meeting. You've been traveling.
I have.
And just hitting all of the places that your wife can come up with on a map, even though you
get a sticker.
I mean, yeah, you really don't take her anywhere, though.
I literally have a book of places she's been now.
I've been running.
I've set the trap, and she's fallen into it.
And
many ways.
And you visited Mark Brim.
Yes. It's worth it. Listen, there's videos in the Patreon group. If you join Patreon, any level, whatever, you just join it. Shoot me an email tonight or a message tonight, Jeremiah at Hog of Liberty, or just Facebook message me. Say, hey, I want to hear about what you guys did in South Dakota. I want to hear about your trip. I want to hear about Zach and his big adventures coaching. Join the Patreon, any level. That's where we share the extra stories, go the extra mile, and it's how the show actually gets paid for because there's no such thing as a free lunch.
It was a nice long Patreon this week.
Patreon.com/Hog of Liberty to sign up. If you do $50 or more each and every month, you are an absolute all-star. Those people are Christy Avery, your Norwex dealer up in Fort Wayne, Indiana. But Newcastle's her second home. She once tried to park right there at DL Couch, invented a road when she was visiting the OYO. Not the best parker, but God, she's a great woman.
Did not know, each word was something I wasn't expecting in that sentence.
That's the second time I've seen somebody's read a sentence that said, no point did this sentence I know what's about to happen next.
Yeah. Every word of it's true, Zach knows.
I was there.
Well, we were all waiting. We were all waiting at the OYO for her to show up, and she's trying to get a tow. It snowed that night. John Phillips, Andy Moore, Buick GMC, our car concierge. He'll get you a truck. He'll get you a GMC Terrain, a Buick. What's a current Buick now? The Enclave?
Enclave, Encore. Are they still making any car? They make a pretty sweet station wagon, people. America needs to get on board. I think it's like a lacrosse. It's pretty amazing looking.
The Lucerne.
Does it have wood paneling on the side?
The Riviera.
No, it looks good. It's hot.
The Regal.
I think they do still do a Regal GS.
Is there a Regal? All right.
Yeah.
John can get you any Buick. Any Buick that exists, John can get it for you.
You don't even have to be old.
No. Listen,
Dakota's already been through one.
Yeah, he's already – Dakota hit his Buick phase, and he's back in the GMC era. And, of course, John is running for city council here in Newcastle as well. And Anthony Meyer, who when I was on my big road trip, he's a truck driver, runs all across the country. He was telling me where to get all the greasy. He's like, listen, you need to go get ribs at the
That's awesome.
Petro station in northern Iowa. You have to stop. I'm like, I'm not.
It's amazing. There are people in Newcastle that can't give you a good recommendation for anything in Newcastle. And they've lived here their entire life. And Anthony Meyer can probably give you 25 recommendations like per state.
Yes.
It's spectacular.
Yes.
All
That's
right.
a skill.
So we thank each and every one of them for their contribution. Without Dakota to hold me down today, guys, this may be a 6-hour episode. I don't know.
Let's do it.
I drove for 26 hours. I did 3,500 miles of driving. And this may go all night because I've got so much to say. Councilman Dicken, welcome back.
Hello. Yes. Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could jot this down because, not having an opponent, I'm just kind of like keeping to myself a little bit.
You don't have any outlet anywhere to go?
No, I really don't.
Anywhere to...
Don't have a cloud to yell at. I mean, that's what I'm really looking for.
Are you the old man that can yell at a cloud?
I literally am, and I'm now at an age where I'm willing to accept that that's who I am. Last year, I was like, nope, that's not me. Nope, I am that guy.
Well, you've been bald for quite some time.
It's true.
Or through our entire friendship, you've been follically challenged.
I know.
Or you're stealing valor and you just shave it, and it's really not true.
We'll never know.
I mean, we would know if you...
I mean, I let it go a little bit, and I think I look a decade older if I go like 3 or 4 days. It gets a little stubble because it is noticeably darker around the toilet bowl.
You have to be a hat guy.
Yeah, have been.
So, no opposition in 2023. Were you hoping that somebody would run so that you could have an outlet? Were you just looking every day on the Indiana Secretary of State's website, refreshing, going, still nobody?
I was trying to recruit Republicans.
Do you have to check the website, or can't you just look out your office window and watch them walk into file? I was going to say,
exactly.
You can watch them file.
Exactly. It's on the opposite side of the courthouse, but I've kind of looked through
You have
the
cameras
windows,
everywhere.
through the doors there. I've always said from being a year or two into it, because there has been a learning curve, and preparing for this show, I'm like, man, my mind has come a long way in how I think and process the things that a typical sitting city council person deals with. But I thought, it's going to be a litmus test. I don't need to put out a survey to see how I'm doing. We'll see, in 2017 or 2018, sorry. Whatever year it was, 2019, I'll get there. 2019.
How long have you been holding office?
Yes. I'm finishing, this is year 8.
Yeah.
So, last city election was real weird because I think there was only 2 contested races. And I was uncontested then, and thought, okay, well, either people are apathetic or confident, and I'm not sure which. And I thought, okay, surely, with Clay running for mayor, there's going to be somebody that's running for my seat. And nope, come to find out, either people are really unhappy or don't care, or are really happy.
Maybe the Democrat power base is just so strong in is it the 5th?
It's
Ward 5?
Ward 4.
Ward 4. In Ward 4, it is so intense that nobody dares. Nobody would dare run against you.
It could be.
You run the trash trucks in that side
be.
of town. Although I will say, your constituent service has been meh, because my yard's been dug up 2 or 3 times, but it's actually never fixed the problem. I still have a water feature in my front yard.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Swear to God.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad.
I'm still waiting.
Once we get in the thick of this part of the show, I'm glad we'll be able to touch on that. It's.
Brenda Kreider is in here saying, "Did you get your yard fixed?"
She was in here before you even mentioned that. She was like, "Did your yard get fixed?" Brenda's on.
I just got the.
I was confused when I read that, because I was like, she is weeks behind. I got that fixed for the second time.
If somebody has come by, they have not closed the loop and told me they've looked at it or done anything.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. At this point, I think what I should probably do is just move. It would be easier. So, what? You've been on the council now. I guess you're wrapping up term number 2, so 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're a grizzled veteran now. No hair.
Yep.
You're on cough drops.
Yep.
You're drinking heavily.
Obviously.
He's contracted me to drive him home after the show, so it's fine, folks. What have the accomplishments been? You signed up to do it again, so you want to continue.
Yeah. Right. Right, and I mean that is part of it. When I ran, I thought that, and I think everybody thinks that. That's why it's so interesting to see new people attack this campaigning from all these different perspectives, because, I thought I was going to be able to do this and that, and it was going to be a big impact, and found out very quickly, just how stringent and limited a city council person is. Especially, I'm not retired. I have a day job. I've got 3 kids, and so it's, my schedule, my day is pretty jam packed. But
I learned this in my time on the Memorial Park Board,
mm-hmm.
was that there were some people, some members, and some other elected officials that had all the time in the world.
Oh yeah,
to do things.
Yeah,
and as a park board member and as a city council person, it sometimes it almost does feel like it's designed for a retired person, because
right,
you can only give so much time, so much effort, or whatever.
Yeah,
and it could be a full-time job if you let it be.
Right. Well, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I didn't, and I'm going to use past tense because I think my whole mind has shifted, that I didn't have aspirations. I actually filed to run for state representative 2 cycles ago, and just I think fighting that I'm in the phase of my life that I'm in pulled that filing out. And I think it would be neat to go serve in Washington, but when I talk about this with my wife, we talk about this at home. Even running for mayor, I had a form. I mean, if we're going to be real honest and juicy on this show,
serious consideration.
I had the filing completed without a signature last spring, and just really finally snapped out of it and said, my life is not ready for that kind of commitment with having smaller children. And a senior this year, got one starting in kindergarten and one in between.
And you just keep having children intentionally to keep this road blocked.
Because nobody faults you when you say, well, I'm having kids. So, I mean, there is that. But in spite of how packed it is, and I've tried to pull back a little bit here recently just as a life refocus for me personally, looking back at, how far downtown has come, historic preservation, my hands have gotten dirty writing grants for the Murphy building, like doing new windows there, having open houses downtown with...
That is the Corey Murphy building down in Indiana.
Miles
and Broad.
Murphy, which I think is his great-grandfather. Personal friend of Abraham Lincoln, actually.
Part of this was true.
Yeah. 2 truths and a lie. Figure out which one's which. And just, I really enjoyed bringing state entities together for historic preservation, and then the second time around, the first time we had it at the Art Center, the second time around, Carrie Barrett and Main Street jumped in. They said, hey, what if we had like an open house downtown? And it went so well, and it was very well received, had a lot of good traction because of that. So I'm really proud about that. Really proud that, we are streaming council meetings most nights, almost all nights. I'd say 98% when, we're not in charge of the internet provider and hardware updates.
So one of the challenging city council candidates kind of threw some rocks this week. Micah Mattingly, who's I think running in the 3rd district? I don't know. He's the 5th district. I don't have them all memorized. And I'm taxed. I'm like
buddy.
Washington D.C. over here. I'm taxed for the city water and sewer.
You're almost
with no representation.
Just a couple more years, and you'll be there.
With no, I'm looking forward to my new sidewalks and my street lights and my adequate trash cans. My trash can that won't have a top on it. I'm so excited to be served by a mediocre city service.
Yeah.
Big B is spectacular. I'm still gonna, even if you people do steal me and triple my taxes, I'm gonna still subscribe to Big B because I want my trash to leave on time. This is the argument Aaron and I have had for a decade now about trash service. Listen. All I'm saying is that it's okay for you to give up once in a while.
Listen, I've thought about getting a small Jeremiah figurine to carry with me in my pocket, so I can tell people, I've got a little libertarian in me.
There you go. Well, there's some jokes. All right, so So somebody threw rocks and gave you crap this week, or complained that the city stream didn't work for your. You guys have a city council meeting twice a month,
right?
Or maybe I guess there's a magical month where there's 3 Mondays.
No,
that sounds
you
just
still have two.
Oh, you still just do
first
two?
and third
First
Monday.
and third.
Boy.
Yeah, they skip it if there's a third one.
Well, that's good for you guys.
It
It's
really
magical
is.
if it's 3 paychecks in a month, but it's really shitty if you have
Exactly.
three Mondays. In a month.
And every once in a while, they line up to where the first Monday is actually like, it'll be the first Monday, but the second Wednesday. So I've got 2 meetings that week because I'm on the Solid Waste Management District Board. So that's like
that's when the family really loves your public service.
Exactly.
All right, so we're dancing around it. You have gotten involved with the streaming side and took it upon yourself. The Indiana legislature actually made it law now, so you have to start streaming these things starting next year.
Right.
But the city's been doing it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And I haven't. I mean, I know I talked with you guys, especially up front, and said, hey, what's the best way to tackle this? Because everything you guys do seems to turn to gold. So we went that route, pushed, and here's kind of a preview of how it is to be a city council person. I gathered all the information and passed it along, and what we ended up with wasn't anything what I'd put on the proposal sheet. So after a while, when it stopped being so easy, I said, all right, this is a good chance to reset. Let's upgrade the audio. Let's upgrade the camera equipment and make streaming easier. So, I ran all the cables because, being a musician, I know just enough to get it plugged in.
Just enough to get yourself in trouble.
Exactly. It was the connecting to the camera that was the fun part, but we finally got it. I go in, try to go in the day of the meeting to make sure there's not a camera update, because that's something you guys have taught me there. And I'm also the one holding the iPad most of the time. I spent some time screenshotting and building a streaming guide in hopes that,
one day you'll
somebody
lose an election and somebody else can be burdened with the
Those
responsibility.
are your words, not mine, but I'm not going to disagree with you. So that somebody else could run it, so that the Parks Board could come in and run something and stream their meetings, so that the RDC could stream their meetings, so that the Board of Works could stream their meetings.
Because by law, they're going to have to now.
Well, I mean, I haven't looked at the law. I know, talking with Tim Mundell in Middletown, I told him, I'm more than willing to consult with these towns, especially in Henry County, on how we've done it. I've got the links of the stuff we've purchased, and it is all new. I mean, that audio equipment that was in that room is probably from the 70s, would be my guess. And we still have some church sanctuary, like cornfield speakers in there. The microphones don't run through them because you can hear everything in that room. We're a little luckier than the courthouse. So, but yeah, I mean, I saw the post that I was sent was different than the post that I saw on the official campaign page, which then everybody can interpret that the way they want to, but I kind of try to put the same message out, because I know every time I share something from my council page, I hear Zach in my head saying, oh, well, we're getting 2 posts from Dicken again.
Yeah, the algorithms don't show me that much.
Yeah, there you go.
I had to go look up to see the post. I didn't see it. Whatever got shared with you about the throwing rocks.
Yeah.
Stuff. But
well,
yeah.
and it's no big deal. But and I've got
It is frustrating, right?
Well, it's frustrating, but that's kind of the nature of the gig, right? And I think that's what's hard for people that haven't been in a seat like that and don't have that experience. And I was inexperienced running against Jeremy Beach and Sherman Bowles.
Sherman Bowles, a 47-time mayor.
Yes, and actually I had a conversation with him this summer. Went out to his house, sat and talked, and just shot the breeze. It was really fun. But you don't realize, and I've tried to say this multiple times, even in elections that I'm not running in, the people that you're chastising, you could be sitting next to and having to work with. And the people that you're, basically alienating some of your electorate, you're going to be serving them. So, I mean, I've just always tried to communicate. And not saying that you have to agree all the time, because, we certainly don't agree on everything. And I've done my far more than my share of stirring things up and aggravating people. I mean, this job is not for making friends. So if you're wanting to make friends, don't run, because I've noticed some people do not come up and talk to me anymore, which is fine, and I'm fine with it at this phase of my life.
You got some peace and quiet now.
Exactly. You know, a couple years ago, I'd probably be upset about it, and now I don't lose a wink of sleep. It's great. I love being 37. But anyway, I mean, I try to convey the message in my campaigning, in my role as city council person, that I feel good about talking personally, going to church and having a conversation with my pastor, with my neighbor. All those messages are gonna be the same. There's not gonna be any distinction between the two. But the third thing that I was going to mention, other than the streaming, is the push for inclusion and the implicit bias training. It's something that's going to come up again. We're working on, City Council's already passed their share of financing another implicit bias training course, waiting on the county to pass it. I think it's just something really important to consider. Is white, I mean, if we're just, again, cutting to the chase, as white as Newcastle is, it's not 100% white. And I think it's important to take the perspective of other people, that don't have the blessings that the rest of us have, that don't have a job and don't have family to count on and maybe don't have a car. And just a lot of things to consider. Not everybody's experience is like mine.
So those are the high level sides. What do people call you about? What's the Councilman Dicken gets a phone call, or maybe more likely nowadays you get a Facebook message. What are they contacting you about, and what's the day-to-day look like of being a city council person?
I mean, you got
other than and my complaints,
right. Which you don't even
vote.
We're
both guilty.
Yeah,
I messaged him in the last week too.
And neither of you vote for me. Gosh, what a shame.
I mean, I honestly, I'll start. I'll just change my address to your house, keep a few shirts in the basement, and see what happens.
Listen, there's a lawsuit that's been settled, and it would be okay.
I'm not running for
that
office. I could just vote from there.
But
I could park my camper in your driveway for a little while.
It'd be interesting for you to ask my wife this question because, when we go out to dinner as a family, inevitably, having a dad that's taught here for 30-some years, he had, I'm guessing, like above 50% of the population in class. But I'm always stopping and talking with somebody. A lot of times city council stuff will come up. Sometimes it won't. But, I mean, your normal stuff, potholes, road paving, trash issues, dilapidated houses, uncut grass. Like there was a house over around G Avenue that didn't have its grass cut.
Those lettered streets are trouble.
Inches. Anyway, but then there's some higher level stuff. Some stuff that is city related and some that's county related. So, I mean, I've always told people, yes, I'm in a specific representative of a very specific district of our community, but we're a small enough and tight enough knit community that you should be able to feel comfortable bringing any concerns to me. So I mean, race issues have come up. Some bias issues have come up. County roads have come up, and so a lot of what I see my job as. Actually, just did it yesterday. Made an introduction for somebody tackling addiction services and homelessness. It's not my job to necessarily solve that problem, especially when there's tremendous people, a couple ladies in particular, who are doing way far above what the city and county government could do. But let's connect them with the right people in the city and county government to actually implement these resources and solutions.
So a lot of it's matchmaker is essentially what you're doing.
Oh, for sure. I pride myself on being a connector. Now, I don't know that everybody would agree with that, but I feel like that's kind of one of my strong suits.
I remember the last time I contacted Aaron, I knew it wasn't his problem. It was but I know Aaron will know who the best person to get a hold of to deal with the problem.
And took care of it like that, didn't we?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if it's fixed yet or not, but they're aware.
He wasn't there today, so we'll see.
Bingo. And that's what's really great right now is that, I've been fortunate enough to make some key relationships in city government and county government that I don't have any problem picking up a phone call or picking up the phone, making a phone call, texting, whatever, and I know who I can text to at least hear me, which is, challenge in stage number one. Whether it gets done or not, I've gotten it to the right person, and I'm confident in that, and sure it'll get done.
And that's where I guess the question is how do you measure progress? How do you be a cheerleader? I know we've had this conversation personally of you want to be optimistic all the time, but then you also get down, right?
Oh yeah.
You see you're constantly in the slog, so you feel you see the frustration, and it's never easy. So do you see yourself being a cheerleader for the city, and how do you find ways to do that?
Oh, for sure. And understanding that I come from a generation who couldn't get out of Newcastle quick enough. And I mean, I think you would again agree. Your graduating class, like, let's get the hell out of here and not look back. I mean, would you agree with that?
Yeah, not a lot of them.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a contingent around, and some of them I'm surprised they're around.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of people. Like, I have a twin brother who is not here, and it's by choice.
Jared.
Yeah.
He's still close enough to visit.
I get real excited.
Not close enough to cut his mom's grass, but he's close enough to visit.
I get real excited when I see people come back, and I've seen that a lot in the last few years. And that, to me, honestly, that's a measuring stick. Like, people want to come back, and it's usually people that want to come back and contribute. So, I mean, yes, you're exactly right. And my wife has caught it more than anybody else. I'll come home from some meetings and say, all right, let's sign the letter. I've got the letter ready. Just whenever I'm ready to print it and sign it, I'm out of here. And then there's some meetings I'm like, we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough. We gotta let's take the next step. Let's run for whatever.
Are you telling me you have a resignation letter just on the refrigerator?
I actually don't. It's just in my mind.
It's just a mental
It's just
I quit.
in my mind. But
It's I think everybody quits their job 10 times in a week in their head.
No, 100%. But I think that is the evidence of a true leader is, you don't want somebody that's going to sit and necessarily, I mean, this is kind of double-edged sword. You don't want somebody who's going to sit and enjoy their fruits of their labor excessively, I guess, is the caveat that I'll put in. You need to have that experience and enjoy the here and now, because the good old days, Andy Bernard, are happening right now. But also, you always want to improve anything. In the last couple of years, there for a while, I was trying to get people to tell me their resolutions in regards to the city. So sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But the last couple of years, I've said, this is the year where Newcastle needs to work on herself. Let's infrastructure or park. Let's not have any big project. Let's not do anything new. Let's just really invest in what we have, our current assets.
And you can have that position as a city council person, but can you actually can you drive that conversation?
I think you can, and that's actually something else I wrote down was something that's really stuck with me from you. Actually, is that at the very least, on your worst day in this position, you have a platform. I've tried to keep that in mind in everything that I do, because when you do get down, you have an outlet. You have a platform to make a case for it. So anything that I bring to the table at a city council meeting is that. It's a pitch. And you can't, there is a disconnect between projects. You can bring something to the table, but, I mean, as a city council person, it's not your job to implement it. And so that is one of the biggest challenges is how do you see it through without, I'm a receipts guy. So I saw a post the other day that, the city council hasn't challenged the budget and hasn't challenged the administration, haven't done this. You know how many headlines are out there about the city council is the city council micromanaging? Or, the city council at odds with the mayor. We've done our share of questioning, but to what end? I mean, you have to be productive. You have to get along for the common good. And so that's the challenge and the teetering of it is, yes, bring it to the table, but how do you implement it? I've gone outside of my job description. And like I said, I did a grant application through Indiana Landmarks because we knew the Murphy building needed new windows. I got my hands dirty and listed and said, we don't need to pay anybody to do this streaming stuff. We don't need to pay $90,000. Like, let's order the stuff. I'll put it all together and make sure it works. So I mean,
most of the time,
right? Most 99%. But it's hand sanitizer.
If you buy it on the outside,
it's hand sanitizer.
It's still not going to work 100% of the time,
right? So I mean, it's there's a disconnect. The budget. This is where I don't understand.
And this is the block and tackling, the meat and potatoes of the job that I wanted to get into. Is you guys, the basics for the people that don't follow city government every day. Is I'm much more in tune with county government than I am city government since I'm underrepresented. I believe that the council writes a budget or approves a budget each year, or does the mayor do that?
Well, and that's just it. It's not the meat and potatoes. It's the side course for the city council. I mean, from my experience, and it's, I've got the definition of what the city council does, and it's not the budget. I think it's a misnomer because
the county council does the budget.
The county council does the budget, and they're very good at being transparent. Well, I think they're very good at being transparent, and it's probably because I'm having conversations with the people that are involved. But for city council, you don't have really any input on the budget. The budget is presented. You vote yes or no. The numbers you get are very limited. It's not incredibly in-depth, and I know the insurance item is on this list here, on your notes, every other line that I can read of the printing. And I know that it's a hot-ticket item, and everybody not everybody, but people that are running are using it. And I've told people, look, if I was running, I'd probably use it too, because I want any advantage that I can get if I'm running for office and I want it. Now, the difference is I would be saying I am going to do this, I am going to do that, not they should do this and they should do that. I'm going to assume that that's my chair. But the budget, you get a figure in the line item. Using insurance as an example, that's an executive branch discussion. It's a personnel issue, whatever. They know what all amounts from all these different places go into that figure. City council does not. So, I mean, I've asked the question recently, does this cover, and just because of your day job as an insurance job, I know the type of question that is, does this cover our expected costs for the year? And, I mean, if you're asking that question on the record, you would assume that the answer you're getting is worthy of being on the record. So at least that's why I ask the questions I do. Sometimes I ask questions on the record that I already know the answers on, because it's a little litmus test of my own. And sometimes that's taught me way more than anything else. But that's the hard part. I've voted no on a couple budgets because I think in a community like ours, public transit needs to be bumped up. We need to have longer hours, more routes. Parks, I hear all the time that's the pride of our citizenry is the parks. They want to get out and enjoy them. So we need to make sure we're doing what we are. And they are. I mean, they're fabulous. And when they said, well, you can't do that, you can only pull down items, well, I voted no, and it was fine. Well, the next year I got three of my pals to vote no with me, and chaos ensued. Because if you
because they didn't adopt a budget.
We didn't adopt a budget in that meeting. If you don't pass a budget, you revert back to the prior year's budget. And given inflation and all of that stuff, it's not good for anybody. We got a budget passed that year to get out of it, and I think that was kind of a wake-up call for a lot of people in terms of organization and communication. What's going on throughout the year as the budget's being prepared, I can't speak to. I always thought, if I was going to run for mayor, I'm going to have conversations
between the mayor and the clerk treasurer.
Yeah, and hopefully, the department heads. I think the clerk treasurer's having those conversations in terms of, what you spent this year, what kind of big items do you have coming up this year. Hopefully also with the insurance company, like, hey, what's this year going to look like? What all pays into this line item? Because that line item pays several different things, all insurance related, all health insurance related specifically. But you have to take that total in aggregate in order to cover your expenses. Otherwise, you end up $1 million in the hole for this year, and that's $1 million in the hole for that year.
That's what we keep hearing, is that it's in debt, right? We keep hearing the phrase from the Morgan for Mayor campaign that the insurance fund has been negative, and it has been for
owing
years.
That's owing ourselves. We're in debt to ourselves, and I see Brenda. I've talked with Brenda quite a bit the last couple years.
Brenda's the current and retiring clerk treasurer.
Yes, thank you. And she has been willing to listen to me, willing to dig in. I know she is having those conversations with department heads. I mean, that's honestly what it takes to make sure your budget's good for the year. I mean, we can't go make more widgets to cover, a special project, and unfortunately that's the case. But
well, here's the thing, Councilman. My taxes have been raised. My local income taxes have been raised like 3 times in the last decade.
Right.
Once for public safety. We had another one where it was to pay for the jail, and now we've got a third time coming where it's going to be for 911. I think it's got a fancy name that we keep talking about that I keep forgetting. PSAP, the PSAP tax.
Yeah.
And in July, maybe in June, the Courier Times had this big story where they came out and they talked to every city council person and said, "Hey,
how would you
vote on this thing? Because
you're not off the hook."
Apparently, Aaron corrected me between when I made the show notes and when we actually started this discussion. If a county or a community wants to increase your taxes, it has to go before a special board if they go more than 0.1% tax increase.
And they did that with Lowett.
Right.
That was the year. It was a campaign year actually during Lowett for city, not for the county, which is interesting that the PSAP would come up in a city election year and not a county election year. I thought that was ironic and interesting that it happened that way. But yes, so I mean, it came up. I reached out to Butch Baker, who's the head of 911 currently. And had conversations, because what I was picking up from the county council and through Rex Peckinpah, who's the president of our council, it was enough to get an idea, but I needed details. And the communication, from the start, it was a little touch and go, but I went to Butch and had a sit-down conversation with him for an hour. It was super fruitful, understood everything, disagreed with it, and told him that. This sit down was really two-way. I wanted him to give me context, but I also wanted him to have context if I was going to vote no, so that he didn't think that I was just flipping him the bird. So because it was over 0.1, or it was proposed to be over 0.1, the city, the county, and I think it's a couple towns.
Yeah,
too,
there are certain towns that have a percentage.
Yeah.
But essentially, if the county and the city both agree, then the hell with what everybody else thinks.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I think kind of
we treat Knightstown like Guam around here is essentially what happens. That's the way the rules work.
I mean, you're probably
Middletown is American Samoa and Knightstown is Guam.
Gosh.
And Strawn would be DC.
A map graphic of that would be to hang in the home would be incredible, actually.
Judgmental maps of Henry County.
Yeah. So I think the conversations were that, the city council, I think the vibe we had put out was that, we weren't all into that. I think there may have been a resolution, or was going to be a resolution, because, I mean, to be quite honest, the 0.9 was getting them, I don't have the figures in front of me, 10 years, maybe 15? I can't remember. It was enough time for them to put together a contingency plan for sustainability. And to me, I mean, that seemed good enough. I don't know why they would go for 0.1, which is just a 10th higher or 100th higher, just to bring in. It seemed like they wanted our heads on the stick as well. It should be.
They went from creating 4,800 feet of runway to 4,850 feet of runway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's the difference that it was going to do.
And that's what I actually asked a couple county representatives. I said, if you're bringing us in, why wouldn't you just go for 0.12 and make sure this is good for a while? Let's just be done with it, and we'll. Everybody will hate us, and it'll be done.
Nobody will have any money left at all.
No, but this issue actually specifically, when I was talking about running for state representative, I knew the property tax caps were hot just from my conversation on city council. People that have expensive property don't pay that percentage. It's affecting nobody else. They've capped all these other taxes. They're giving money back at the State House. They're these heroes in this limestone building in Indianapolis, and they're making, and I've heard you also say, they're loading the gun and cocking it, and they're going to make you pull the trigger, because for a local government, city, county, township, whatever, to function, we have to have more finances, and they're choking us at Indianapolis. And they're saying, hey, well, you've got this tax that you haven't maxed out. You've got this tax that you haven't maxed out. You just need to max out all your taxes, and then you'll be fine. But they're not going to sit in the grocery line with the people that are voting. I'm going to sit in the grocery line with the people that are voting, and that conversation is not one I'm going to want my kids to hear.
So that was a question that I had, was that, are you satisfied with the way we fund local government?
I mean,
because not the hey, do you get enough money, but the method we do it.
Right.
Because we have this came out today. Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch is running for governor, and she wants to eliminate the state income tax.
Beautiful.
Right. So that's her plan, but it doesn't say, I don't know if she's going to eliminate the county option income taxes that are there.
Right.
Or if it's just going to be another, hey, we're going to get rid of the state tax.
Yeah.
I don't know how this works, right?
Is 8:00 the threshold?
Yep, you're
for
good.
The show?
You're good to go.
So you're going to cut income tax, which sounds great. I actually just told my child, who's going to be 18 in January, going to vote in this gubernatorial race. We were talking conspiracy theories and how much. Actually, I think he had said something about, I trust this more than I do the landing on the moon. I said, don't tell that to Buzz Aldrin because he'll punch your lights out. But I said, I'm not worried about the moon landing. I'm worried about my taxes. So, yes, should Hoosiers have their money? Do Hoosiers know how to spend it better? Yes. Are Hoosiers going to pay to pave their roads, to fix their clean water delivery infrastructure? Hell no, they're not going to do that. Why would they do that?
Well,
that's the government's problem.
But we're all doing that through user fees. That's not through the income tax.
Well, not through specifically the income tax.
Our roads are getting paved through a user tax.
But what's the
of
user
fuel.
fee going to actually go to? I mean, theoretically, if it's in a non-reverting fund, as this came up a couple meetings ago, if it's in a non-reverting fund, it should go right back there. But if you've strapped a local government in all these other different ways, it's not going to be good. And again, on horse and shining armor, this gubernatorial candidate is going to ride off into the sunset, a hero, while the people that are shopping groceries with their neighbors are just getting meleeed because fix my road. Why are you taking all where are my local taxes going? Why is my road crap? Why is my trash not getting picked up? Why does this? I mean,
why does my front yard leak? Yeah,
exactly. I mean, honestly, so the state's sitting on, I don't know, what is it, $8 billion still? $9 billion?
$4 billion. Billion here, billion there. Nobody knows.
Yeah. And so they're going to mandate that you separate the stormwater from the sewer water, but
what
good
happens,
luck signing that check on your own, buddy.
What happens is that they won't really say how much they have until the last possible minute.
Yeah.
There's a projection, and they're like, well, it could be $7 billion, but we won't know until the projection comes in. So we can't. They have a long session. They meet in January, but they won't really make the decision until April of that year, and then have a 10-minute conversation and say, here's what we decided to do.
Well, and
that's the way I've seen the budget process work in Indiana for a decade.
And I think I shot a text message to Representative Criswell, and I said, hey, something to consider for next session. The state mandated the stormwater separation project, unfunded, because unfunded mandates are fun. They put the fun in unfunded.
When I bought my house 10 years ago, my sewer and water bill was about $28 a month, and I think it was $109 when I just paid it.
Oh my gosh, it's insane. And that's my mom calls me twice a year, and she lives in my ward. I have to have one vote to get elected, and I'm not sure it's going to come from my family. But how about some funded mandates for clean water delivery? What can the state do? They always tell us that those billions of dollars are for a rainy day. Well, guess what? It's effing rainy day now. In not just Henry County, but every county that's outside of Marion County or Hamilton County or, the donut counties. Donut counties seem to be doing fine, and that's total judgment, by the way. I have no foundation to make that statement on. But, all of the rural counties are just
the roundabouts
struggling.
Are coming. The sign of a county doing well is how many roundabouts you have. and I know we're getting roundabouts in Henry County. It's going to be the cavalry is coming, okay?
Right.
Our status symbols are on their way.
I'm ready.
We're getting one.
I don't mind
We're
them.
getting one at Shenandoah, up in front of Shenandoah on 36 and
is
Raider Road.
Is that for real?
Yeah, NDOT's got it. Yeah, they're doing it.
What are they going to do with the house?
Not my problem. But it's coming.
There's a house.
It's going to surely be offset.
There's a
right?
house like 8 feet off of the road.
It's going to be
Listen,
offset.
we have roundabouts that have graveyards in the middle of them. They've got contingency plans for anything. We put a windmill in the middle if we need to. They can do whatever.
I mean, that's an idea.
It's the county flower.
Maybe a statue. I don't know. A memorial. But I mean, I went kind of on a rant there, but I think at the heart of it, this is very real, and you can't have a conversation with anybody in Indianapolis about this, because just like some of the candidates that were on stage at the presidential debate last night, they're all super polished. They all have their canned statements. I remember asking Brian Bosma, all of 8'3" of him, at an AIM legislative dinner. I said, "Why don't you come to Newcastle? Let's grab a steak sandwich at the Ice House and talk road funding." Now they'll say, and Senator Leising told me, our former Senator Leising, told me, the state's got all this money and they just want you to put your hand out. So they want you to beg for it, is basically what she's saying. They want you to beg for it. They don't know their districts well enough to know what is needed. They rely on us, but they're also putting us on the hot seat to make horrible. I mean, I don't fault the county. The county had a terrible decision. Do we let 911 go under? Or do we raise taxes? That's the shittiest decision that you have to make.
That's literally the Russian roulette game.
Exactly.
Load the gun, you pull the trigger.
And one of the decisions means that EMS won't come to help you after you shot yourself. Yeah.
Or you're going to get hold music. You're going to call 911.
Yeah.
You're going to get hold music for 5 minutes. And our 911 and emergency responders, you hear over the last 3 or 4 years, the lives they've saved from suicide, the fires they've been able to get to in time to save some buildings and more importantly, save some people. I mean, it's
stroke victims, heart attack
victims. It was hard.
Yeah.
It was hard for me to tell Butch that this isn't the way to do it, because the county years ago, under a completely different administration and council, really had Lowett dollars. We've, as a city council, and this is, kudos to our finance committee, but the city council has used our Lowett money for capital expenses, which are not normal occurrences. They're big ticket items that would be hard to pay for otherwise. That's the stuff you use the Lowett for, so that your budget can maintain and stay the same. So,
because the Lowett money is not guaranteed, right? Or it's filling a gap.
Right.
In theory, as we've had perfect world, right? As we've had all of the ARP, the American Rescue Plan money come in, those are things where you want to do big projects that don't continue to require money down the road when that money runs out.
Yeah. No, that's definitely one way to think of it. And the ARP money is just weird because, from inception to today, the regulations have gotten so loose. We could probably buy Band-Aids. Well, I mean, Band-Aids would kind of make sense because they're health-related. But, I mean, you could buy almost anything, fund anything with the ARP money at this point. And guess what? I'm pretty sure it's use it or lose it.
Yeah, it's free money. Got to do it. All right, so let's talk about city ordinances. This is where you first got in the crosshairs of young Dakota Davis on this program. When you
would do it again in a heartbeat.
When you tried to ban smoking.
Yes.
In a public place.
In a public place.
We were going to have the first Boss Hog smoke-in outside of a city council meeting, and then you backed down because Dakota scared you.
Oh, did I?
I think so.
Oh,
that's the way we remember it.
Man, again.
I think you figured out it was already illegal, wasn't it?
Again, 30-year-old Aaron Dicken and 37-year-old Aaron Dicken are two completely different people. I would have been so calm and cool, and I enjoy a cigar every once in a while. But, all of my resolution pitches, ordinance pitches, whatever, have been in my mind. And, again, this is something to think about on both sides of, whether you're an elected official or not, have been what I think would improve our community. So, actually, on city property, you can't smoke, and that includes the parks, which kind of tackles what I was going for.
So we can't smoke on a sidewalk outside a bar at the town tavern.
Sidewalks.
Actually, I think the health department. Well, maybe that's just restaurants.
You have to be
25
You have
feet.
to be 8 feet away, or whatever. You have to be so many feet away from the door.
Yeah.
State law says you have to be a certain distance from
Maybe
the doorway.
that's it. But I mean, if it's city property, it's supposed to be illegal. Now, again, the conversation we've talked about.
Sidewalks are city property till it comes time to pay for them.
Oh, that's true. That's true. Grant money. The conversations that we have is and I've kind of taken this approach to when somebody comes and asks me about changing the speed limit in their neighborhood, especially if it's not on a main thoroughfare. To enforce an ordinance, a law, it takes what?
Force.
Yes.
Guys with guns.
So I'll change the speed limit to 30 miles an hour or 20 miles an hour on Cherry Street, for example. But if nobody's there to enforce it, what are we really doing? I think we're making, number one, we're making people feel better, which I think does account for something and is valuable to a certain extent. And number two, I've learned that doing this, even in that ordinance with Dakota and Clay and you, it's raising the conversation. And I think there's something to be said about having those conversations, whether it goes through or not, because I think Dakota won't admit it unless he's had a couple rum runners on the beach. But
I'm going to say he's Bahama Mama right today. I'm going to say
frozen
Bahama,
for sure. Frozen
Dark
for
and
sure.
stormies.
Yeah.
I don't know.
With the extra whipped cream and 2 cherries.
The chat can be guessing what Dakota's drinking on the beach tonight.
I don't think he would admit it, but I think he would. A small part of him would see how maybe that is a good idea, but logistically speaking, it's not. And vice versa for me. I understand the pitch from your guys' side in that specific scenario, but I've got my own perceptions. So that's where communication, both within city government, administration to council, city to county, state to county to city, whatever, the communication has to be there. And sometimes it's absent, which is really a shame. And I've brought that up a couple of times, especially with the city and county, like, hey, we could really benefit from some pretty consistent communication between councils and executives, and maybe even CC our state representatives so they know what's going on. But again, I'm just a city council person. I say that in public. I'm just a city council person. Said it the other day. I have no decision-making power, but I've got a platform.
So have you noticed, you represent the 4th Ward?
Yes.
And I believe Riley Road is included in that.
That's the birthplace of Aaron Dicken.
So Riley Road, if you go from the west to east, is a 20-mile-an-hour zone, starting way the hell out, damn near in Henry Township. And then I'm pretty sure that it's just kind of we don't even know how fast you can go heading west once you leave the school.
Yeah. Okay.
What's the
That
story?
way,
What's
right?
the story? Yeah. What's the story? Do you when you set a speed limit, do you have to set it like the same thing going each direction, each bound, or is it inbound and outbound different?
So,
and
something I've learned is if it's unposted, the city ordinance says it's 30 miles an hour. Now, posting is a little different because if you're coming from west to east, you see a 20-mile-an-hour sign either before you go down the hill at like around Kovacs, or you're coming up the hill heading east. There's a 20-mile-an-hour sign, plain white, black, 20 mile an hour.
Yeah.
And then
the next sign
is 20 miles an hour when children present. And I brought this up.
We can speed up unless there's kids there. Now we can speed up to 30 and just stay the hell out of the road.
I had a full-blown conversation with the assistant police chief, Justin Wardlow, who I will praise up and down, left and right to any stranger, because he is one of the best communicators, one of the best leaders our city has. We're incredibly lucky to have him and his family in Newcastle because the leadership quality, it's just hard to find. But had a conversation with him, and he stated that it is 20 miles an hour. Now, you had posed the question, is it directional? And that kind of came up at the last meeting, because at the gateways, I could see if you're coming into town on Grand Avenue or whatever it's called out in the county, if you're coming into town, I could see, hey, we need to trigger down to 30 miles an hour. But if you're going the opposite way and you're leaving town on Grand Avenue, you're going to have that trigger up. Now, it'd be interesting to color code those zones and see if that's how it works. I'm not a traffic engineer, and there's a certain...
But you're tasked with the deciding.
Oh, for sure. And so when I've changed...
Because if you go Main Street, right, this is all around Riley Elementary School, which is your alma mater, so to speak.
Bulldog alum, check in.
If you're heading southbound past the school,
Me too. Yeah.
on Main Street, I'm pretty sure you have to be once again damn near out of the city before you're allowed to go 30 miles an hour again.
That could be, and again, some of this
should need updating. Or
is
some review.
like the zoning, okay? And I know we've got zoning in here as well. I was just told the other day that zoning hadn't been updated since the 70s. And so because it's a big project, it's a big undertaking, the key is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. It doesn't have to be your idea. You just get it to the right person. So, city council is ultimately deciding on speed limits, on zoning, and they've got different committees and boards to advise them, but it's ultimately city council's decision. The zoning board approved a rezone in a residential area for Little Caesars, and I thought that was a bad idea because of the foot traffic and the car traffic and where it was located. To me, in my mind, it just didn't make sense, and I had people living in that neighborhood, residents, reach out and say, hey, not for this. So it doesn't mean it's going to pass, but you have to rely on the police department. You have to rely on traffic engineers. You have to rely on the street department to advise you on this. And I think what's most important, and I know that some are putting out there that, when's the last time you've heard from your city council person? When we've changed the speed limit, I typically try to go and knock on doors. We had a parking. We wanted to remove parking from one side. That was suggested. I went down the whole street and up the other street and took survey, and it just wasn't. Why are you asking me that? It wasn't important to them, the people who it would affect daily. So I think whether you're passing through there or not, it's going to more effectively in that scenario impact the people that live there every day. So why not take that into consideration when you're making that decision? So when I report back as a committee person, traffic committee, have not changed off of that committee, and I'll tell you what, there's no winning. There's no winning when you're on the traffic committee. But
that's where the real power is. That
exactly.
Is in the city traffic committee.
Right, and you're just always going to get calls. It's important to ask the people who it's going to affect.
So now that we got our non-answer on if you're going to fix Riley Road or not,
I'm gonna bring that up, and I'm gonna bring the yard up literally tomorrow.
The city has been working on adding in your time. They've added some recognition for some making this city more bicycle friendly. Where you painted the little guys with the sombreros on the road. Yes, we have a walking path that almost gets all the way down to Woodbrook.
Yep.
It was promised that it was going to get all the way down to Woodbrook, and the hundreds of people that are overtaxed down in that area.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that was state funded. I think that was a state grant, and it's almost like the state didn't have enough money. It's weird.
It didn't quite work out.
Just a few billion short.
Are these things going to happen at some point? Are there intentions to make more walking paths, more trails, more accessible things? As I've traveled the country in the last year or so, it's been really cool. We bring our bikes, right?
Yeah,
and it's we go to Petoskey, Michigan, and I have 20 miles of a wheelway that I can ride on my bicycle, and we can go to the ice cream shop. We can do whatever.
Oh yeah.
Are there ways that the city can try to be more accessible to make that happen?
Most importantly,
and is it a priority? I guess.
I mean, priority is relative, I guess, depending on who you ask. I think it's an important part of the conversation. I mean, you guys can't tell me that you haven't been driving down State Road 3 in the middle of winter and seen people walking the big slopes that the plows have made along the side of the road, either walking to work at a restaurant.
I see folks walking from the city, and this is why I ask you all the time. It's not entirely about me, but in the fact that my neighborhood comes a few hundred feet short.
Right.
But I see folks from Newcastle walk to Walmart to go to work every single day.
That's common.
You see workers running up and down the State Road 3 corridor every single day that are trying to just simply get to their job or get to school.
And whether it's the environmentally conscientious or it's the people that don't have a choice and they're wanting to check in or clock in for work, that part of it is irrelevant. The most relevant part of it is how can we safely get these people from point A to point B. The State Road 3 is a main thoroughfare. There's a lot of activity on State Road 3. I think it's hard when you're working on a project with the city, and I know our regional NDOT, a couple of those guys are really great communicators. A couple of those people are. But it's kind of changed, and that's what's hard is I think I remember them saying 2023 at one point was the goal, and now I think it may even be 2025 at this point. But they are trying to incorporate some sort of walking path, sidewalk, whatever, and it doesn't matter to me, right? Like, do you remember when they were putting in the walking path around that end of the city? People were so like, that's not a sidewalk. Like, it's a place where people can walk safely.
It became a walking path because it was asphalt.
Yes, exactly.
Which I will point out again. I admit, if you're on a bike and you're running, it's actually nicer than a sidewalk. Because if you cross 100%. Raleigh Road in the middle of his ward, the road between there and Baker Park, there is a street cut or curb cut for every single driveway.
You cannot wheelchair, bicycle, whatever. You're not doing it. You're going to be in the road.
No, so that path is actually far superior to this.
Right.
And I get long-term life, whatever. But, yeah, just a point to bring up. The sidewalk on the other side of Riley Road, if you are a kid riding home from Riley School, you're either in the road or you are hitting a curb every, 80 feet.
Oh, not even that. Like every 10 feet. Yeah, right.
Down and up, down and up.
Yep. It's awful. And I walked to school a lot when I went to Riley.
And there's no sidewalks
my parents,
from your house.
I think, were pretty nervous about it and we live pretty close, so it probably wasn't that big of a deal. But I think actually the Sproulses lived in the house a few down from me, and I know more than one time I think I slam dunked her clothesline. It'd be Tom and John's mom. And I heard a knock on the window, and I saw a shaking finger. I mean, I think it's really important on that aspect for safety and transportation for people that need that. On the other hand, just like the parks, I'm seeing that our trails, whether it's the Wilbur Wright Trail, the Rose City Trail, whatever, are one of the bigger draws. I mean, Trojan Woods, the skate park, it's all right there and connected. Is a big draw for our community, whether you live here or you're a visitor. My dream, and I know these conversations existed for a while, was to connect to where people could go to TS Tech or Boar's Head for work and on a walking path or bike trail. I always thought it'd be cool. We don't have a canal, but like those railroad bikes. To have the Armory turned into a brewery. This was before it was what it is now. And you could have a trail along the railroad. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that people are looking for in a community like ours. So, I mean, I think it's growing, much like pickleball. I mean, I think we could stand. I actually sent a map with an area circled downtown to a couple of people that are historic preservation minded. I said, I mean, what would you guys really say if there were 4 pickleball courts right here downtown? And they liked the idea because it's a hot sport, and I think it will be usable regardless.
I would also say to just as a priority, I'm trying to remember. I attend Mr. Dicken's meetings with the city. It has been a priority but it's like
you're talking about me, not my dad.
There's zones. Okay. Like there's different parts of town, and they can't spread, and they get a lot of heat for it. They can't spread the money all over the city all at one time. And so like lately I would say that the focus has been the north end of town with the Fitzgerald Trail, which is a trail that's like about a little over a mile, I think, that goes around like the Osborne Park area, and they're trying to connect that to the hospital. And so that's been a very specific thing that they've been. I know Rex, I would say that's kind of Rex Peckinpah's baby, where he's been wanting to get these sidewalks to connect the hospital to the school, and so that is a thing that I think as they can. They are trying to continuously do it, but they have to be very selective about where they can do it, because it's like, oh, if we give every ward
You're right.
this much feet, then they're all going to get like 100 foot of path, and
Yeah,
it's not going to go
right,
anywhere.
right.
As opposed to we can go put 500 or 600 feet somewhere else and get
that's-
something done.
And that's the goal, right? Connect south side, east side to the west side, north side, and then you're looking at connecting communities. Like, how can I go explore Knightstown on my bike from my home in Newcastle? I mean, that would be great to do it that way.
Well, you could take your kayak. It's just a bitch
And
getting
walk.
back home.
So the canoeing
it's
the
a
blue,
whole
I
lot-
was like, I've walked a lot more than I expected.
It's a whole lot easier to get to Knightstown on your canoe than it is to get back home with your canoe.
The same, I mean, to piggyback real quick off of what Zach just said, the same is about road funding too. Looking at next year, what roads need paved in your ward, and I drove around. I mean, the roads that need paved are the roads in the neighborhoods that aren't being traveled a lot unless you live back in there. Those
pretty
people
sure
pay taxes.
I'm pretty sure that whatever roads need paved are going to be the ones that are getting ready to have a water main break.
I mean,
Just ask Mike. Just ask Greg Phipps. Greg Phipps is like, "Don't touch it, man. We haven't been there in a couple
Don't
years.
look at
It's like a geyser. It's due. It's just due for something."
As soon as you pave it, that's when the water main underneath it's
Or
going to break.
or when an unrelated utility decides that, hey guys, we need to cut holes in this road, because that happened. Like,
yes.
they immediately
Like,
they paved in front of Baker Park, and immediately like the gas company came and just punched a hole through the asphalt, and then they kind of like, we kind of fix it, and then they just, and it's never right again. And
Reminds me of Dakota saying, "I'm the first one on the new road" from Cars, and then boom, we got a utility cut. But that's the hard balance of it, is that these people in the neighborhoods pay taxes for their roads, so at some point we've got to hit their roads as well. And I mean, it's not really fair that my neighbors live next to me, because I feel really weird saying, "Hey, my road, and it is
road's
terrible.
really bad."
It really is terrible." And there are several in Sunnyside in that neighborhood too that could really use it.
Have you tried
So-
getting a podcast? Because Zach got all of his roads paved, and so did I this year. In the
both-
last year,
I live on a corner,
Yeah.
and
Well-
both of my streets are on the list this year, and I didn't even notice. And Jeremiah's like, "Look at Zach getting favoritism for going to meetings." I'm like, "Dude, yeah."
Yeah, I'm
But-
guessing that I've upped the size of my spoon one too many times to stir it up, and people just aren't looking into that. For me.
I wonder if mine's just because I'm in one of the neighborhoods where the gas company has torn into my 8 ways. I still have kind of like it's not a hole anymore. It's like a gravel pit in my front yard where they dug up.
So two things real quick, and we do need to move on. But has anybody considered that pickleball might turn into high lie, where it's a really big thing in the 80s, and then it's just an abandoned project? Because do we have a high lie field still left over? Maybe in Osborne Park? I don't know.
Not that I'm aware of, but that would be super cool if we did. So when I played tennis in high
Kids, you
school,
can Google high lie, JAI.
and it's not the beer.
No,
It's
not the
the beer, not the microbrew. When I was in high school, we ragged on the pickleball players all the time because we'd come out to tennis practice and there'd be chalk lines all over the tennis courts, and we have to pour our water on it and like use our foot to scrub it off and whatever. I went and played for I don't even think I played in PE, but the first time the other day with Gary Thornhill, Steve Finnegar, and John Allenbaugh, and there are some things that translate over from tennis, playing doubles especially, and there's some things that don't. And it was a riot. And I think that it's been growing for a couple of years, but I only see it like right now really catching fire in Newcastle.
Dude,
for all ages. Braylon at 17 is into it.
I stayed in Normal, Illinois at the Love's Travel Center campground,
Wow.
and they have a pickleball court
Yeah,
that they built for the campground. It is like the thing. It's the amenity people want right now.
it is.
I just wonder if it's going to go away.
I mean, here's the thing. If it goes away, guess what? You've got a really great foundational pad for something. Because
else.
you know it's flat, you know it's smooth.
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's what I think about the old tennis courts at the high school. Like, if they wanted to build something on that, it's pretty much already started. They could just build on that, and it'd be fine.
I was gonna say, if you put some downtown, then just like convert, like it's Newcastle, just
Yeah.
make them basketball courts.
Bingo.
If you don't need them anymore, and then
We do like basketball lives here. So, any comments on the State Road 3 project as far as candidate Clay for mayor? Clay
Yeah.
Morgan for mayor has been talking about ways that the city can try to affect local businesses and help them out and
Yep.
help them weather the storm that's going to come.
And that comes, I think, from seeing what the State Road 38 project, what kind of impact it had on our community. What's hard is, the meetings that I was in, it did not happen like I remember those meetings going.
They weren't planning on a Buick yeeting itself off into the middle of the river.
I'm thinking downtown, but yes, also that you can't control certain things like people that are going to send it.
Greenfield drivers, man.
Yeah, exactly. But for the 38 downtown project, the way I understood it was going to be closed in sections, basically making downtown still travelable and accessible. And they shut it completely down, and it was awful. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't disagree with Clay. Like, everybody's got to be on the same page, including NDOT. And really, yes, it's your city, and I think Mayor York had gone to bat more than once and actually toe-to-toe from one that I drove by and saw during the 38 project. You've got to, stand up for the city of Newcastle and the community and the business owners and the travelers and, everything, trying to get from point A to point B. So even though there is that, you're also somewhat beholden to NDOT because they're the one that's funding the project. Now, again, we've got some really great communicators, and I think it seems as though the little that I've been involved in, everybody's on the same page and everybody's trying to work together, which is great. And so now, yes, what can we do as a community to prepare for this? But again, you've got to kind of take your calls from NDOT.
So, Mike Broyles is talking about crack, but I think he's talking about roads.
No, he's talking about pickleball courts.
Oh,
He's talking about pickleball courts. Yeah, if you knew the drama that the city council dealt with the pickleball courts resurfacing, which I think is finally fixed.
It was nice out there when I played. Yeah.
Yeah, but like
good.
at one point, I had a drone shot that was actually not even meant to get in. I was at the new skate park, and then it looked like the pickleball court had been duct taped back together, and I think that they were struggling to get the installer to come back and deal with their product.
And I think it was sent to somebody who found out that it could spell help with an exclamation point. Allegedly. I don't know who that would have been.
So, anything else on the city council side you want to cover?
No, I mean, I would hope that people think that I'm accessible.
Are you in the phone book, sir?
Yeah, Yellow Pages turned no. Information's on the city website. I'm always accessible through my Facebook page, at Primo, at, wherever I happen to be, walking to Kai's, school functions, whatever. And I hope people get the idea that I'm considerate regardless of whether we agree or disagree, because that is what it takes to actually weigh an idea. You have to consider all sides. You can't just ramrod your way through. Now, to quote Darren Jacobs, and I was looking for a way to get his name in here.
Comrade.
Yeah. To some extent, I've been voted in to represent people, and they trust me because of that. But at the same time, we got to be considerate and have that communication. And so, yeah, reach out to your representatives, city, county, state. Like, that's what they're there for. It doesn't mean you have to be rude, but just communicate.
In an update from the last episode we had 2 weeks ago, The Fault in Our Stars got moved. John Green, Indiana author,
Yeah.
noted pace car driver from the original Angie's List Grand Prix.
TikTok celebrity, Indianapolis realtor. I believe he was trying to sell a house in Irvington this week.
Yeah, I saw that.
And also a guy that can do a 30-minute impromptu speech on tuberculosis.
Yep.
These are all things from his recent
what's
TikTok.
he say? Brother to Hank Green.
Yes.
Yeah.
Brother to Hank Green. His book got moved by the Hamilton County East Library Board. They had a meeting today. I assume in response to us bringing light to the issue 2 weeks ago on this program. They had multiple inquiries from Ethan Britt and the Indiana Public Access counselor. They canceled 3 executive sessions this week. They changed their meeting time by 3 hours, and they they had a couple of members meet with their attorney in a local coffee shop and kind of got their hands slapped around for that too, potentially.
Solid.
They did decide to pause and rescind their policy that relocated all of these teen books. So now the librarians, I believe, have to move them all again. The poor executive director, I was watching the lady desperately trying to get some clarity because she could just hear that she had been thrown into an absolute nightmare
for sure
of trying to do the will of this board and deal with the public and the outcry.
Because
because it's a library board, right? And they all
she
of a sudden,
is
when you
going to
have
be
300
easily
people show
accessible,
up,
not the board.
Yeah. Spectacular. But I think the Boss Hog bump caused them to reconsider, and they have now made this book available again. Once again, they don't photo ID you when you go to look at a library book, and it's not behind. I know that you probably were a good boy and never went looking at the family video, but it's not behind the Western-style gates.
Gosh, what a throwback. What a throwback.
At the Family Video Dollar General. Do you ever go to the milk case over there and just think about what used to be?
I haven't, but now I'm going to for sure.
Not the milk case. I think it's like personal care items.
I think
back
you're
in the
right.
car.
I think you're
Milk,
right. I've been maybe
the
like
cold
twice.
stuff's on the right. Yeah.
It's where all the jams and
I'm just
jellies
amazed
are kept.
that they don't think that they're for real. Like, I mean, this doesn't exist anymore, I bet. But like, some kid's just not going to walk over and try and find an anatomy book somewhere in the nonfiction section and hope that it's got like nudie pics in it or something, or go through an old National Geographic. They're worried about John Green's book.
Well, what I love about this, and we had a conversation about this at my mom's house, and I had to figure out a way to work that in too, because I think both my brothers are watching, but Wes is in the chat. My mom does not have a Facebook. She communicates through my father's Facebook, and now apparently my brother too. But my favorite thing, and what I find the most admirable in people, is what was John Green's response when they said, "Hey, we're moving your book back."
His response was, repeal your policy, you morons.
What about the other books?
Yeah.
What about the other authors?
It's not about me.
Exactly.
I have a voice, but just repeal your stupid policy. Because to the letter of your policy, you do need to ban my book. Your policy is stupid, is what he was saying.
Right. I mean, those are the people that I just crave to be in these government leadership positions, because it's not about them. It's not about their idea. It's not about their vanity. It's about the core issue, the core value of what's at hand.
There is I tangentially paid a little bit of attention to the national GOP debate, and I thought, great, this is at 4 years we waited, and our great hope is one of these people to give us a different option, and I think this is freaking terrible again. And it's not my party, right? I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a tortured libertarian. Have not found a horse to back anywhere along the line. But you want good quality candidates from all parties, so that you have a race where you go, give me some good options. Make this a hard choice, because I want to choose between some good candidates. And it's just, I'm not optimistic. There's one person in D.C. now at this point that I'm like, yes, that person I could support, I could give money to, and I would do the work for. And
I agree. Pete Buttigieg. Oh no,
he's not an elected official. Jeff Jackson, the North Carolina congressman.
He is.
He's a freshman.
Please look him up on Instagram.
And again,
he's speaking
all
directly
comes down
to people.
communication.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
And I could the best thing, or something that people should take into note, because people are like, oh, he's going to be whatever. I had to look up what his party was. His chats on Instagram are not about the topics. It's about the mechanics of how dysfunctional Congress is, and they're fascinating. But he's not screaming.
Nope.
He's not. His voice is ASMR.
It really
like he is just dead. Like he's like the nicest
Right.
guy in the world. You just want to go have a beer with him in a restaurant or whatever.
And
yes.
in about 2 years, he'll have no job at all, because they're trying to redraw him out.
Good gerrymander him
They're
out.
trying to
Gerrymander
throw
him
his
out.
ass off.
He's not extreme enough, and that's what I have found, and what I thought when I was, I don't watch the news all that much at all, because I find it droning and negative. I try to stay out of national politics a lot, because I find it droning and negative. So I was scrolling TikTok looking at clips of the debate, and I actually saw a comment about Nikki Haley. Like, you could tell she was a Democrat, but she, again, was kind of middle of the road last night. But we have now created an environment in national politics especially, and I think it's crept down into the state house, because you talk to some of those people over there, And I mean, gosh, cut from the same cloth. We don't elect public servants. We elect entertainers. We want to be entertained. We want somebody, whoever we vote for, our team or our player, to own whoever it is and chastise them publicly instead of disagree with them. I mean,
to get on the debate stage for the challenging party this time, you had to promise that you would support the nominee from your party no matter what. That was one of the qualifiers to be one of the 9 eligible to be up there. You had to raise a certain amount of money, you'd have a certain number of donors, you had to have a certain polling number, and you had to promise that you would support no matter what, no matter who it was, that you would support the other people. Former President Trump didn't show up, but they all had to promise that they would support him, as today he got arraigned on 13 more federal charges. In
jewelry store, right? Looking at bracelets?
I think he got some new bracelets. I can never remember how it worked out.
It's confusing.
But there is a very legitimate chance that they have just had to promise, in order to stand on the debate stage, that they will support somebody who is convicted of federal crimes between now and the election.
And what was it? Vivek just was like,
absolutely.
Me.
I mean,
me.
Asa
and
Hutchinson,
everybody else was like scanning, looking to see what everybody
Asa
was
Hutchinson
say.
is running as the anti-Trump candidate. And he's like, yeah, I'm in. And then he's like, later in the debate, apparently, he's like, yeah, I changed my mind. Actually, I should not have done that. I'm sorry. Oops. Didn't mean to. Couldn't hear. Hard of hearing old guy, you know? It's just, it's comedy.
It
but
really
national
is.
politics is theater. There are very few people like Jeff Jackson that are actually speaking directly to you.
And he'll tell you exactly what you said about the entertainers thing. He's like, yeah, you know what's funny is you turn the cameras off and they all act fine. Like, he's like, I think there are probably some of them that aren't fine because some of them are really out of their mind. But he's like, yeah, most of them, he's like, they're just doing just circus stuff because the crazier they are, the more press time they get. And the minute the cameras are off, they're like, yeah, we're fine. I would rather deal with a true believer loon, that where you know where they're coming from, versus somebody that's just doing it for the theater. Yeah, that's my fans.
You know, it's
my feelings.
I have conversations with people about the way it was, and you know, I've told you need to have Rick Gann on your show. He worked for Congressman Sharp back in the day. I see old Polaroids of him on a phone in D.C. and it was just. I have conversations with Gary Thornhill at the office too about this, and we're not anywhere close on the same spectrum. But there's a reverence for that statesmanship that I think is just gone and traded in for this cheap, short-lived. You know, we're all for the instantaneous feel-good moment, and we don't want the long game of it at all.
Sarah Morrill celebrated her 29th birthday again yesterday, so that's why I didn't watch the debate. I didn't want to ruin her birthday by watching it. One last little news item I wanted to cover tonight. There was a story out of southern Indiana in Vincennes that a man was arrested. It was a level 6 felony. He was driving a Power Wheels Jeep while intoxicated, and apparently that's a crime in Indiana.
I believe this is one of my fun facts I like to tell people. I think you can get OWI on a horse in Indiana. Like if you're moving and you're on a road and you're operating whatever is moving, I think you can get an OWI or DUI, whatever, no matter what it is.
The copy says that 9 o'clock last night, August 23rd, the Indiana State Police trooper was patrolling on 2nd Street in Vincennes, where he saw a man driving a Power Wheels Jeep in the road with no lights or reflectors.
That's why. Had he had the lights and reflectors, would they have pulled him over?
51 years old. He showed signs of impairment and failed sobriety. He was under the influence of methamphetamine and the marijuana.
He probably thought he was going 100 miles an hour.
His eyes were this big.
He didn't need lights. His eyes were dilated.
Yeah, right.
He could see like an owl.
Do you think they impounded the Hot Wheels Jeep?
Oh, I hope it's sitting next to a car in an impound
with
lot.
a boot.
With a boot on it, yeah.
They just took the battery. He's driving an electric car. He was saving the planet.
I mean,
it's right out of a Vince Gill song. Do you guys remember the song he had about George Jones? His wife took away the car keys, but she forgot about the old John Deere. That was the song. So the music video,
Forgot
he's
about
driving
the Power Wheels battery.
He's driving the lawnmower to the bar.
Oh my gosh!
And Aaron mentioned this before the show. There is a video of a woman like going to the liquor store in a Power Wheel and like putting her brown bag
Coming out, yeah,
and putting it in the back,
passenger seat.
hopping in her Power Wheel and driving off. I don't think that that law
becoming a
enforcement
common
cares
occurrence.
whether or not your vehicle is street legal, whether or not you're driving it intoxicated on a road.
Yeah.
See, if he had been in a boat, nobody would care.
I mean, it's calmed down, but we used to have some hooligans that would run around just out of downtown Newcastle on mowers and just like terrorize the neighborhood with their lawnmowers.
I'm not one to throw stones, but there's an incredible amount of mower traffic in my
I thought you were
going to
say the ATVs or whatever.
We have that.
I'm
too.
seeing more of that too.
We have the quads and the lawn
with no triangle on the back. No, I don't see a license either, but a little different than the golf carts. An ordinance issue.
I don't know. It's in the county.
What am I to say?
What can you do about it? All right.
Exactly.
Final thoughts, Mr. Zachary Burcham.
I'm gonna just, if people want to see what city council do, go to the meetings. I'm gonna echo. I know something that Councilman Guffey urged Travis White, friend of the show, to put in the paper was that I know there was some flack thrown about a meeting being short, as if it was like a way of like keeping the public silenced. I'm like, I've been to. Man, I may have missed like a handful of meetings in like I don't know how many years it's been now, and I've never seen them be unwelcoming to anybody that shows up. Usually they're very inquisitive. Like you show up a couple of times. First of all, they wonder.
Elle would probably disagree with you.
There's one that guy started it. Like if I was going to say. There was a meeting not too long ago that was one of the most uncomfortable situations I've ever been at ever.
All ages.
And if anybody wants to look back and watch some of the sheriff's race shows, those were uncomfortable as well. And this was right there with them. And it was the second time in like a year or 6 months' time that there were police cruisers parked outside of a building I was at without my knowledge for my own safety. But that guy started it. But yeah, but like they're friendly. They ask you what you're there for, and then I will bug different people at different times about different things I need, or have concerns about.
If you go to every city council meeting for 8 years in a row, you get your roads paved.
To my roads. Yeah, my roads didn't even need paved at that actually. But there's a trench through one from the gas company. But yeah, like show up to the meetings.
It'll be real cute when they pave his driveway too.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Just
move all your vehicles out of the way.
I legit am trying to pay attention to the meetings of when this is going to start because I have my vehicles are all parked within like 5 inches of a roadway, including a camper. So I probably need to have the camper moved out of the way. But show up to the meetings, ask people. Like if you see Aaron, don't bug anybody too badly, and if they're doing stuff out with the family, but you can say, hey, if you have a quick
to be careful
concern.
when those pavers come by because they knocked my mailbox down.
Yeah, I will. My camper sits like 3 inches off the road. Like it is barely off the road.
I hope your insurance agent's listening.
I've got concerns. I don't even know who my insurance agent is. But yeah, show up to meetings, pay attention. You'll learn a lot about the process, and you'll learn who you should blame for problems. And a lot of times, it's not the city for some stuff. So, other than that, everybody stay cool. It is awful outside right now, but I think it's supposed to be nicer by the weekend.
Councilman Dicken.
I mean, Zach hit the nail on the head. I think engagement and participation is kind of what I've tried to preach here recently, whether that looks like, asking questions in an inquisitive manner, being curious and not judgmental. Ted Lasso. And or whether it's running for office. And I'm happy to talk to anybody of any party about running for office. Talked to a Republican recently, had lunch with Chris Staten when he was running as a Libertarian, just because, to echo what Jeremiah said, we need good people in government, and I think that's important. So, but mostly, yeah, be curious and not judgmental when you come with questions. I know it's hard these days to just assume that, or to not assume that people have it out for you and whatnot, but especially locally, chances are they're not coming for your guns, so...
They will come after your chickens, though.
You've always got the zingers.
I just want to give a shout out to Zach and his mechanical skills. We had our berry picking party or our bearing packing party before the Grand South Dakota trip. Made it all the way home. All 4 wheels were still on the camper. Had the temperature sensors on the wheels and the bearings. And Zach can pack a hell of a bearing. No failures the entire time.
Nice.
It was spectacular.
Meanwhile, my truck took an entire evening where it refused to start, and then it's just run fine ever since. I have no idea why.
If you need your berries picked, call Zach. With that, we say thank you guys so very much.